The Kansas City Chiefs ended their season with a thud, but it doesn't mean a damn thing because they're sitting out the first round. We're going to have some fun tonight. We will go over everything you need to know about this game, some of the questions you might have about it, as well as some of your thoughts. But a lot of it's going to be focused on the future and what we can take away. Welcome. This is RGR Football. Welcome in, everybody. Thanks for joining us post-game. We are a little delayed. You know, it is what happened. This guy had a bit of a rough outing. Let's be real. These guys, I think, actually did pretty damn good. I'm pretty happy. What happened next with this dude, and why did he play so much, and who else stood out? That's what we're going to go over here because that's what we do post-game. He's Dan Harms. I'm Ryan Tracy. This is RGR Football, where we break it down for real with no punches pulled. So Dan, I'm going to let you throw the first punch. Is there anything meaningful to take away from this game?
There's a few little tiny things. One of the most important factors, the Chiefs have zero defensive tackle depth. They cannot sustain an injury along the defensive tackle spot for the rest of the season because there was nothing there. You had Mike Pennell out there playing football. Like, I'm not mad about the game. It's what it is, 38-0, whatever. I don't care. I'm more mad at myself for believing that Carson Wentz could do anything in this football game. And that's on me. That's on me, again, for not quitting a guy who I couldn't quit for a long time. I can now finally quit Carson Wentz. It's not happening for him as a backup. So, but overall, I think that this just shows you some of the depth and how the Chiefs really are kind of carried by their stars in a way at times. Yeah. You see, now that we know Nick Bolton, none of the big name wide receivers played. Chris Jones didn't play. None of their big defensive ends played. So not just their stars, but their ancillary pieces too. This is a full-fledged football team that when they are operating at a high capacity with their starters, they're obviously very good, but the depth is quite lacking. It turns out the Tennessee Titans now have the first overall pick in the NFL draft. You know what that means, Chiefs fans? They now have the very first selection in the third round from the trade that they made from a guy they were never going to pay in L'Jarius Sneed, and who also has sat out like, I don't know, 75% of the season because he got hurt, like the Chiefs figured he would. Well, turns out, pretty damn good trade to make to get a top, a 60
number 65. Yeah, right.
65 pick. That's a really good trade.
I am going to take that all the way back and twice on Sundays. Just to go over it, these are initial numbers. These are not the final numbers. But as you mentioned, the defensive line depth got 6 snaps from Mike Dana, 3 from Turk Wharton. I think both of those were probably too much. Sometimes you had to do it. It was Mike Pennell, 23 snaps. It was a necessity here. And kudos, because most of that came because I don't think Derek Nani, I thought he hit his limit. He and Marlon Tuipulotu both played 47 and 48 snaps respectively. I actually came away with his first action pretty happy with Marlon's performance, given that he hasn't been on the field yet. There's upside there that I can see. He got moved in the run game too much. He did make a couple of pops and was able to crush the pocket a few times in the pass rush, so certainly needs some development there. But I was happy that I feel he can be a rotational guy in the postseason if somebody does have to come off. If Mike Pennell just has to have a breather for a few snaps, I can live with Tuipulotu in there with the rest of the starters. Can you?
Maybe if it's a pass play, like if it's an obvious pass play, because if I'm a team and he comes in, I'm running directly at him, I'm running duo, I'm going to displace him immediately, because that's one thing you noticed. Not just was it getting displacement, he was like 5 yards in the backfield. That's not where you want to be as a defensive tackle. So there's obviously still some things that you need to work on as a player, but in the grand scheme, there's some talent there. We'll talk more about defensive tackles because, as we all know, draft season is upon us, so we will be all over that as we get into. And I might have a mock draft dropping tonight on the Draft Network where the Chiefs, I don't know, maybe select a defensive tackle in the first round. So we'll just go ahead and put that out there for you guys.
Oh, that's perfect timing. I'm so excited. Okay, so that is the Draft Network, folks. It will not be Greencast. Like Dan's screen clearly is lately, because you have the TV on as well, right?
I do. Go check that was the Mint Mobile commercial.
I love it. I'm eager to see who you give them, because I've started in on some of the lists. Folks, you can get these notes. They're pretty sparse because I didn't have a whole lot to write this game. But the takeaways are what we're going to discuss tonight. You can get these if you become a member over on that side. We always get you those. And it's the point blank what I see every single game. You can take it, you can leave it, you can have arguments with me. I'm going to have a ton on Black Monday, things that have already been done that were dumb by their prospective franchises. You're going to see that on NFL 33. We've had a couple of great pieces recently, so check us out. Make sure you go get subbed over there. It's super cheap subscription, and it'll keep you informed as we go through the playoffs for the Chiefs, what everything else is going on in the NFL, and obviously get after the draft prospects that Dan's going to light you up with everything that he's doing at TDN. We'll also have it here like we always do, because some of these things, like the defensive tackle depth, are things that we have to address. Also, we have to address the cornerbacks, because J. Will can't seem to go a drive without getting a penalty called. And Najee, as much as I wanted to believe that he could rise here towards the end, I think this game shook his confidence. They matched him up too often on Sutton again, which was his downfall last game, and I think that shook him last time. So I'm officially concerned about Najee Johnson at this point.
So if you can have Jaden Hicks, a safety, play better coverage on Cortland Sutton than Najee Johnson, you got a problem. Najee Johnson is not going to be working out. And I know that he's coming back from an injury. We've talked it up a lot. It's going to have to be, luckily you've got Jalen Watson coming back from his injury. He's going to have a couple of weeks to practice and get ready for this game in 2 weeks. That's a huge boost for them. And you might have to activate Steven Nelson, who's, again, going to be working through practice. You cannot rely on Najee Johnson in any game situation for the postseason. If he's on the field, on the defensive side of the football, not special teams, you're probably going to see him being targeted. And that's not what you want, because the problem is you're going to force a safety to come after over the top, right? If you rotate to a single high and you have to shade him to that side, we got one-on-ones on the opposite side. It's too easy to predict for the opposing offense to attack him, because he's legitimately very, very bad in coverage. So I don't think he's going to be coming back, not just this season for the Chiefs on defensive side, specifically with Jalen Watson now hopefully going to be ready to go in the postseason, but next year in the future either.
Yeah, we're going to have to see how it all works out. The draft discussions, once we get through this Super Bowl, are going to be deep and immense at this position group. We are going to take some of your questions as we work through some of our takeaways here, and we do want to get to the first one here with Steven. I know you had that ready. It looks like, was this the first one? Am I caught up to where I should be?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the very first one.
Awesome. Well, then I'm going to let you, our resident skills expert, walk through the X, Y, and Z.
So it's basically where you're lining up on the line of scrimmage for the most part. So your X receiver is always on the line of scrimmage. The outmost receiver on the line of scrimmage, that is your X guy. So if you're thinking of it in a 3-by-1 or a 2-by-1, we'll just say the tight end is attached, okay? You have two receivers to the right, you have one to the left, okay? The one that is on the line of scrimmage, that's probably going to be your X receiver. So let's say the standalone receiver on the left side is your X. Then on the right side, you've got your Z and your what is it? X, Y, and your Z. Typically, your Y is your slot. Your Z is your other outside receiver, but he's off the line of scrimmage. He's not lined up on the typically. He can be, but typically you see the tight end or someone else be that regard. So all different ways to say Z is your move outside player. You can motion him in, come back out, but he's typically off the line of scrimmage a little bit. And your slot is that guy in between the line of scrimmage and your outside Z receiver or your X receiver, depending on where they are.
Most offenses, especially the West Coast derivatives, are going to refer to the tight end as the Y. So that kind of plays in there too, whereas the slot's really just the slot. Some will call it S. Some will give it a fancy name. I've heard it called all kinds of different things, just like the floating safety does on the defensive side, star or whatever you're going to use. Every scheme has a different term for it, but those are the basics, Stephen. Thank you for the question. I know I get caught up in using those terms without explaining them to everybody all the time. So cheers to you. We are going to keep taking your questions, so get your super chats in if you want them on the show tonight. We'll try to address the other topics, but don't forget, tomorrow's the Q&A, where we're going to address every topic out there and answer all your super chats. Everyone gets an answer at that point, so please put them in if you would like to. Dan, before we go on to the next question, what's some of the biggest, or what's the number one takeaway for you after this game?
This game, again, it doesn't matter. And for me, the biggest takeaway was the lack of effort. Okay, I understand this doesn't mean a ton for everybody, but you've got receivers dropping footballs. You have quarterback taking sacks where he doesn't have to. You have lack of tackling ability from multiple different facets. I thought Cam Jones today was pretty awful in the first half. Like, he was lackadaisical. He was taking poor angles. And even when he had a running back one-on-one, he was in the wrong spot, wrong position, and he let that running back, I believe it was Javonte Williams, who's not the twitchiest guy in the world anymore, beat him and create a better angle. So the lack of tackling effort on the defensive side was frustrating to me. But overall, again, we have to remember this game means nothing. It was an opportunity to get guys on the field to keep them in shape for the postseason because they're not playing next week. So just relax. If you're mad about this game, you just take 2 seconds, look in the mirror, get a drink, calm down. This means absolutely nothing. And it's not how they're going to play in the opening round of the playoffs either.
I'm 100% with you. And here are the stats. And I too, as much as I love Cam Jones is more in my notes here for things that he didn't quite do correctly than the things that he did. Especially that last screen that he led into the touchdown. He was not running hard to the sideline because he thought that Najee had it. And that's the problem with backups. Backups are used to playing with stars that generally make the play for them. And they are a secondary tackler instead of being the guy that's always prepared to be there in case. And I think that's a mentality change that has to go on because I believe unless they draft someone else, Cam Jones is going to play more snaps on defense for this team next year. So this was a tune-up. I'm glad that he got so many plays in. He's still got a ways to go there too. Obviously, we talked about Najee Johnson here, and I just want to make sure you guys, if you can see all of this. The other guy that really stood out to me was our guy that we just don't understand. I got to tell you, just before we even get to this, yes, this is him in the background behind
it was
Mark.
so weird. It was so weird. I was like, I literally have it in my notes. Uche at linebacker, question mark? Like, that's what I put down. What's going on?
Crazy. It's just absolutely nuts. And it's fine. We've seen players make transitions before, right? We should be happy for him. I thought what I put in my notes multiple times is that he's really showing that he is a 3-4 LLB. He can play that position. If they want to go, if all this BS about Spags taking a head coaching job happens and Joe Cullen becomes the defensive coordinator, they are going to a 3-4. I will tell you that because on third down, they're going to break down into a 4-man front anyway. They'll play base in 3-4. Uche would be an outside linebacker. And that's what stood out to me about him today. But that was all on top of the fact that I watched Cam Thomas make play after play after play for the Cleveland Browns yesterday. And both of them have been giving me a conniption fit as to why they're not playing more. What did you think of Uche today?
I thought he was up and down. I mean, obviously, there's a reason that he wasn't active, and I guess it was, we're going to teach you how to play off-ball linebacker. Because at the end of the day, you don't just put someone in the game like that when they've been inactive with something that they haven't been practicing. You don't do that. So there has been a concerted effort to teach him to play a little bit of will, which I'm okay with. I'm fine with that understanding of looking in the mirror and saying, we don't really have any guys that can move very well in space. And Uche is a guy that can move in space. The problem is he's an outside linebacker. He is not an off-ball linebacker.
Right.
Asking him to drop into a zone and then understand where he's supposed to be and make plays. Why do you guys think that the check downs and the under throws were so effective? Not one damn person understood where they were supposed to be. They were all confused and they kept getting checked down and then flat play here. It was, and Bo Nix didn't have to do anything. Tony Romo, stop talking up the completion percentage of Bo Nix. All he's doing is checking the ball down and throwing it deep to wide open players. The last 2 games. Watch it. Please, I beg you. But overall, I thought that Josh Uche giving you a little bit of flexibility is the reason that we didn't see him active. So now we got to see some of that. Again, I thought that there were some obvious issues. He was also around the ball quite a bit in this game, which a positive for me.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it is that's what's got me thinking about the difference. An outside linebacker in a 3-4 has to be able to drop and play in space. That is part of their role, much more so than a 4-3 defensive end. So that is really, I think, a testament to what's the backup plan? What's our future plan?
Agreed.
If it's harder to get defensive tackles that can rush the passer, right? Well, you don't need as many if you're playing a 3-4. So that's part of the math that I think is probably going on in somebody's mind. I just don't know if it's a decision maker or not. So that's what we're going to have to come to. So back to the question. Scott, thanks for the super chat. We appreciate your support, bud. Can we finally put to sleep the false belief that Joshua Williams is a number 2 corner in the NFL? Once again, he had an opportunity and did nada. He was around the ball. He did have some good plays, but it was heavily counterbalanced by some just dumb plays, not making an evolution yet. And I've given this is over 24 months to make that transition from Fayetteville State. Granted, it's a long way to go to get here, but you're here now. And I'm to the point where I expect more out of him if he's going to continue to be on the field.
It's year 3. This point, you are what you are, in my opinion, in terms of getting better. He's been the same player for 3 years. He has not gotten better, in my opinion. I don't think he's gotten a whole lot worse, but I don't think he's gotten better. And the fact that he continues to have opportunity after opportunity to showcase that he can be that guy, he's been unable to do so. And Jalen Watson put a stranglehold on that CB2 job this year, a stranglehold. Not only was he clearly better, he was one of the best cornerback 2s in the NFL before he got hurt. Now, I'm hopefully can come back and give you some of that play because they absolutely need that right now, specifically with what we're seeing everywhere else. But let's talk a little bit about the other guy out there who's making plays in coverage, who has apparently, as soon as Chamari Connor got back in the field, they said, hey, Chamari, go back out there, even though CRW is way better than you in coverage. Like, way better. I don't understand it. Hopefully he's okay. Hopefully Chamari Connor is okay. We don't have an update on his injury status. But let's be honest with what we're looking at. CRW plays better coverage. He's around the ball better. And he has that instinctual man coverage technique that Chamari Connor doesn't have. He just doesn't have it. So they have to play more CRW in the postseason, in my opinion. And I think that in some of those obvious passing situations, a secondary with Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson, CRW, Jaden Hicks, Justin Reed, like that sounds like a lot of fun for the postseason, I'll be honest.
It'll work. And I know people are like, he gave up that long pass to Sutton. I can't remember if that was the one that scored or not. And yes, he did. It was a free release with absolutely no contact. If you let him jam, that becomes a very different play and doesn't end the way that it ended it there. He is still a rookie and he still will have some of those plays. So he won't be perfect. Playing him in the playoffs is more risky than playing someone who has more experience. But again, this is all dependent on Jalen. Jalen will make the difference in the guy that comes back on defense. On offense, the guy that stood out to me today that I think can be that because he was one of the very few that actually put his foot forward was Peyton Hendershot. And I'm excited for him. When they start using him as the motion guy to determine the coverage, you know that they trust him to understand where and what he's supposed to do and see. And that stood out to me.
It's so nice to get him back because honestly, 13 personnel is one of their keys. It's one of the things that they can do that other teams in the NFL can't and won't do, and they can't do it effectively. They can't pass out of 13 personnel because they don't have guys that can go do that. Well, Peyton Hendershot had kind of proved that, yeah, I can do that for you. We know Noah Gray can do it. We know Travis Kelce can do it. And Patrick wants to do it. Like, that's the thing. They want to get in 13 personnel and say, please match with base. And if you don't, fine, we'll run the ball.
Yeah.
We'll get 5, 6, 7 yards. That's fine. And if you finally bring that other player, that linebacker on the field, we're going to play action you. We're going to get that matchup that we want, and we're going to take our shot. That's what Peyton Hendershot brings. So I was very happy to see him play the way that he did. And, you know, we hoped on the game plan that he would be someone that they starred and they got after. They get some of that experience, get back his feet under him. They did that. And that's to shout out Nico Remigio.
Yep.
I know he dropped the ball that probably should have caught, but this is what the thing that we saw with Nico the last couple of seasons, and we're hopeful that we were going to get to see before he got injured. Like, he is a guy that can create some separation across that horizontal separation. He's probably not a burner, not going to create a ton downfield.
Right. They
don't need that. They got guys that'll bring coverage downfield with them, and you can stretch him underneath. And I think that's a huge role. Without McCole Hardman in this offense right now, I think Nico being on the roster for the postseason should be a very good thing, especially because he's earned the return role, and now you can maybe sprinkle him in a little bit in the offense, and I think that would help a lot.
I think what I saw from him today was a little bit better vision and understanding where the zone was.
Yeah.
It's one thing to play man. It's a feel thing more than it is a vision thing. But I will go even a step further. Next season, he's not going to break into the top 4, I don't believe, because I think Hollywood will be back, and I think there's a decent chance that Hop could be back. I think that's real, but he will be on the roster, and I think that he could grow into the role that Juju has right now, which is, again, not to stretch over the top. It's the intermediate and in. It's the drags. It's the low crossers. It's doing those things like that. What was it? It was a deep out today that he got hit on, right? And yes, he dropped a pass he probably shouldn't have. He also caught a pass that he had no business catching too, because it was a hell of an effort, right? So there's pluses and minuses there. But I do see a path for him to grow into somebody who can contribute in the future as well. So I'm excited about that. And I know you're excited about this question, so let's get to this right now. Can you explain from an X's and O's standpoint what putting Worthy in the back field actually does?
This is a great question because people are like, well, it's like a gimmicky thing. And well, yes, it is, but you're creating matchups. Why is Travis Kelce at H-back? Well, it gives him a free release all the time. It's a matchup on a linebacker almost exclusively. They don't bring a safety down for that. Xavier Worthy, if he's in the backfield, he's lined up against a linebacker most of the time or a safety because they're going to bring that safety down. Typically, like against the Steelers, it was Minkah Fitzpatrick. He was responsible. His responsibility was out of the backfield. But what it creates is that slight hesitation. Okay, with just a little bit of movement to the right side of the field, maybe eyes to the right from Patrick Mahomes, it makes Minkah look that way first. And if you hesitate with a guy like Xavier Worthy coming out of the backfield, Patrick says, "Oh, okay, I got you," and he throws it right down, and it's a touchdown. It's creating those matchups. You want safety, you want linebacker on your fastest and your best player from 0 to 100, and that's why they do that.
Yeah, and it's only going to become more effective as they get more creative with it. So be ready. The ride's about to start here. Daryl, thank you, buddy. One of our core members, been here 4.5 years in the memberships. And I know it was some before that as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Who would you like to see us play in the divisional round? If you just had your favorite matchup, who would it be?
I mean, favorites, I don't care personally, but like the Broncos, I think that would be a fun game to watch, specifically because I am not as confident that Bo Nix is as good as what we've seen this year. I think that Steve Spagnuolo in a one-on-one matchup would probably destroy the kid just a little bit. But I think if we just take everything for what it is and everyone wins, like the top seed wins, it would be nice to see CJ Stroud again. I think that the Texans probably are the easiest matchup in terms of what you're looking for because of how they played. They're going to take the Chargers in the first round, so you have to think that they're going to have a really good chance to win that game. But I think the Texans, if everything would be my pick, that would be the game that I would go for.
I have to disagree with you about Bo Nix, and that's perfectly fine. We can disagree on that, folks. I want it marked down, by the way, for those of you who think we never argue about anything. We disagree wholeheartedly on Bo Nix, period. Honestly, we were more together during the draft cycle than we are now, and that's good. But I do agree with you completely on the Texans. I think they're the weakest team because I think the Broncos and the Chargers, with the familiarity that they have with this team and this roster, I do think they're a worse matchup than the Texans are. So they would be my first choice. I got to be honest with you, though. I think they lose to the Chargers. Yeah, I feel like the Chargers are escalating right now. I don't know they get there. I think the most likely is probably that we're playing the Chargers come divisional round, but we're going to find out, Daryl. Let us know who you guys all want. Either put it in the comments if you're watching this after fact or throw it in the chat now. Answer Daryl's questions. Who do you want in the divisional round? And we'll get back to that here in a minute. Adam, thank you, buddy. Appreciate the support. Was this the best that Jaden Hicks and Felix looked all year on defense? Also, what'd you make of Nico's game on offense? I think we covered Nico. I don't have a whole lot more to do other than for a vanilla game, he was able to stand out and do a couple of things. I think there's more upside still there. Would you call this Hicks' best game?
I don't think it was his best game. I think that because of the level of talent that we saw on the defensive side, it was obvious how much better than most of the players on the field he was. I think that's the big difference, that you didn't see Nick Bolton making splash plays downhill against the run, Chris Jones get in the backfield, even, Karlaftis to an extent. I think you saw Jaden Hicks do what he does, but it wasn't it wasn't oversold by everyone around him, like making great plays, Trent McDuffie, stuff like that. It was him just shining on his own, and everyone's like, oh man, this guy's pretty damn good. So I think we all understand that Jaden Hicks is going to be a really good player. I really don't think this is Felix's best game either. I think that he had some good plays, but I think the Falcons game earlier this year was a really good one from him. And I would even say last week against the Steelers, he played very well as well. So in terms of starting roles, I think that the Falcons game was his best game of the season as a starter.
Okay. I would take last week against Pittsburgh. It was the most bang for the buck too, given how many snaps he played. But yeah, this was a good thing to see, Adam, because it's 2 weeks back to back, right? And I do like that. And I would say for Hicks, I really liked his game, the one before that against Houston. Again, had the pick, but also gave up 0 yards in the pass game. So that's what I'm looking for, is the ability to stop completions. That's what I look for. You're going to see that all over the stats. Is I'm going to give you a new way to look at stats in the draft cycle this year, and what the criteria are, and stopping passes from being completed is a huge chunk of it. So we're going to continue that, and it's going to be apparent down through the playoffs as well. Thundarius, nice to see you, buddy. Glad you made it home, and everybody check out Thundarius' channels. The beer stuff's good, and he's going to be a guest with us as well on the beer channel here for us. If you don't know that, RGR Craft is going to become more about food and whiskey and some other things. So go subscribe over there. RGR Craft is the name. It's in the links as well. People need to chill. Nothing more about this game translate to anything that would happen in a real game, from lineups to play calling and more. The only thing that I would argue with you there is the one thing that does have to translate is the ability to communicate. And that comes down especially to Hicks and Cooks, but in the front as well. I think that might have been part of what happened with the defensive line, because they didn't have a strong voice in either Tranquil or Bolton directing them a little bit more. Cam was felt like a little bit more hesitant to me. What did you see?
For a guy playing in his second game, season closing game as the Mike, he felt slow in terms of mentally not understanding what was going on. I think that the Broncos were moving a lot of pieces around as well. You saw some bootleg, you saw some play action, you saw some motions, and they were doing a good job of, I think, creating some problems for the second level players. Remember, they were still playing for their postseason lives. This was not a throw it away game from them. They did not just play a vanilla offense. It was, we're going to do what we do. And Sean Payton's very good at scheming up plays. He's done that all the time. They talked about how after the very first drive, they were going to get Cortland Sutton, his money. And that was designing and scheming up a play to get him open like that. So we have to remember a little bit too, that this was not going up against a backup quarterback like the Chiefs did last year against the Chargers. This is a completely different situation.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I completely agree. Drunken German, nice to see you, pal, and thanks for the support. Finally, the games matter. This will be the healthiest KC has been all year. No managing snaps, holding back players, or testing depth. 4 straight Super Bowls. I tend to agree with you very much. I'll feel better when I know who the opponent is, because then I can start looking at the game plan. That's kind of like the divining point for me, Dan.
Yeah, I think that the Chiefs are going to do a really good job of probably guesstimating who they're going to play, and you're going to see 4 different kinds of beginnings of their game plans, but one's going to be much larger because that's who they think they're going to play. And then if they have to go back and rework it, then they do that. But you're right, Drunken. The games finally matter now. Like, this is what it matters. This is what makes the whole everything that we've seen that they went through this year, the last 2 years, worth it, right? They're going to have their shot at changing history, being the best team to ever live. Let's not forget how much the Chiefs want that title. This team wants that title. I think we're going to see a completely different vigor and effort and concentrated assertion to really be all in on the details when the postseason starts, much like they were last year. Yeah. Like, this was a completely different team in the postseason. So I'm very excited to watch that. I'm going to take a little detour at the moment. Drunken, my apologies. I just saw something on Twitter. This is
it Omar Kelly?
Direct. It is Omar Kelly. This is a direct quote from Tyreek Hill. I'm opening the door. I'm out, bro. It was great playing here, but at the end of the day, I got to do what's best for my career. I'm too much of a competitor to just be out there. Whoa! I thought you was the best quarterback you ever played with. This was the best thing for your career ever. Wow, who could have thought that?
For those who don't know, I will try to pull it up here. I got to move some tabs around. But that is the quote from one Tyreek Hill, who I will say this. The guy's never been bashful, and he's always been pretty good at what he does, right? I'm not even going to play the audio because I don't think I have it set up right to do it, but I will show you guys this. And it sparks one of the thoughts that I've had for quite a while, and that is that there is a way that he gets released. There is a world in which Tyreek Hill is a free agent. And I, for one, would like to see the reunion. You don't got to pay him much. He's made plenty of money. Thank you, Dolphins. We very much appreciate that because then we'll have the draft picks and him. But you put him back in this offense with Trav for what might be the last season or two of Trav's career, right? Put them back together with Xavier, with Rasheed, maybe with Hollywood. Holy hell, you cannot defend that. If they are dumb enough to let him out and release him, it'll take about 5 whole damn minutes for him to be back in Kansas City.
I fully agree with that. And because Tyreek Hill, again, has what happens to players when they witness what they should have been a part of? What happened to Kareem Hunt? We've seen the video. We have visual evidence of him just, I should be there. I should be with them. They want it. They want to play here. I understand that he's this different kind of, I guess, distraction for some way, shape, or form. In Miami, sure. When you can't win postseason games and you can't travel anywhere and win in the cold, I would imagine that's pretty frustrating for a guy who was the best receiver in football for a time. And then, oh, lo and behold, the team you used to play for is now the 1 seed. They lose to the Broncos.
Again.
Your guys' playoffs. Just what's happening?
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's frustrated and mad.
And I love it. I personally would like to see it. I don't believe it was like I hate you. I want out of this organization. It was definitely best for him. It certainly has paid off for the Chiefs. And if they can do a reunion that's cheap and under the radar and he can finish his career where it began, I think that would be super cool. I am a little bit of a sucker for the sob stories when that kind of stuff happens. So let's make it happen and win another ring on the way, by the way. 38 months, over 3 years for Quentin. Quentin, we appreciate you. Thanks, buddy. It's nice to see you. Talk me off the ledge. This game has me worried as hell. Why do we look so flat? This was bad. Well, I'll give you a couple of reasons. One, it didn't mean jack shit to any of them. 2, they sat on the tarmac and in a plane for over 6 hours just trying to get here to play this damn game. I think they were like, okay, we're here. We're gonna do our job. We're going back home to go to bed. We get a whole extra week off. I think this was just the hangover from the process. But I will also say a lot of this was evaluation. The play calling was vanilla. It was trying to see what you had. The emphasis was not necessarily on you got to get out of here with a win. So I also believe that they probably are happier sending the Broncos to play the Bills than they were sending Cincinnati. That's my thought.
Yeah, I don't think that the Chiefs care who they played, to be honest with you. I don't think they care who got in the postseason. I don't think that this was a Bengals, we'll stick it to you. The whole thing, we have an actual clip of Patrick Mahomes last season 2 years ago saying we match up better against the Bills, but I want to play the Bengals. We have actual visual, audiographic, and audio. It's all there. They want to be the best. They would have loved nothing more than to play the Cincinnati Bengals in the divisional round and then kick them out of the postseason themselves. They would have loved nothing more. But you want to know what? Rest is far more important than trying to make sure that all matches up. Okay?
Yeah. It is what it is. I like a little vengeance. I don't care what form it comes in. That's fine. Donnie, nice to see you. Thanks for the help. I know it's early for the draft and free agents, but I think the Chiefs are going to dip into the DT market. Also, can we please play Remigio more next year? I think he will have a better opportunity. I think they've kind of, at this point, with my understanding that they want Hollywood back, that they've seen enough already that they want to see him in a uniform again, right? It's going to come down to the X's and the dollars and cents is what it's going to be, but he hasn't contributed enough. So it's reasonable to expect that you can get him back on a contract that works for the team. So that's the premise that I'm operating under. Everything depends on whether they win this championship or not. in terms of D-Hop in my mind. And I think there's a possibility he might play for a discount as well to try to then do something else. I feel like D-Hop isn't a guy that's like, if they win this Super Bowl, I don't feel like D-Hop's going to be, okay, I got it done. I'm out. See ya. I'm retiring. I feel like he's the type that's going to be like, well, hell, we could do this again, right?
I think that's probably accurate. Like, you see how this team treats Super Bowls. It's not a, yeah, we want to be the best. We want to win the Super Bowl. It's a need. It's a need. The culture creates. We want to be the best that have ever lived. And I think DeAndre Hopkins showed you a little bit of that already this week, saying, yeah, that'd be cool to get my incentives, but I care about the playoffs. I more care about making sure I'm on the field and getting ready for the postseason. That's really all you need to know about what he's going to bring to the party and what they're going to be focused on, and how they always seem to find the veterans or the guys that want to do that, right? That just don't care about the money. Yes, the money makes a lot of sense. Chris Jones gets paid because he's the best defensive tackle in football. Okay, you got one there. Patrick Mahomes, here's a 10-year contract, $500 million. Have whatever you want to, and then allow us to do whatever we need to do. Yeah, cool, we'll do that. They make it work, but they also surround themselves with guys who buy into the culture. So I think you're right on D-Hop.
Yeah. As far as defensive tackle, Donnie, I do think that they will take a look at both in the draft as well as free agency. I'm going to share with you guys what it looks like in free agency right now, because it ain't stellar. I'm just going to tell you that. But there's a couple of things to this as well. You see on this list, there are a couple of Chiefs, including Turk and Derek Nottie and Mike Pennell. I think all that will work itself out. I don't know the decision on each, but I do think it'll work itself out. And they've tried a couple of these, right? They've had Jaron Reed for a year, didn't fit the system, wasn't able to make an impact. I do think somebody like Jerry Tillery, who they know, who's still under 30, could be a guy that they bring in as a rotational player. I think Jonathan Hankins is a guy that I think could fit. He's a little bit older, but they might take a chance on him. Amazurike could be somebody else that they look at. Maurice Hurst could be somebody they look at. These guys are all at the 30 point, which makes me a little nervous. I don't know that I would go there, but as you look down, everybody that's slated to be a free agent that you look at is right there close to 30. So will they find something? I think that they will. I hope that Marlon does enough in the postseason to get himself back, which is my preference, but we're going to find out. It's going to take a combination to get a deeper rotation that can actually help Chris. Because Chris, honestly, has played too many snaps this year. So the defensive tackle group has to get deep.
Yeah, you have to. You have to, not just through free agency, but through the draft. You need to invest. And I do think they're going to bring Turk Wharton back. He is the only guy that I think has played well enough. And no offense to Mike Pennell, but it's time. It's time after this year, buddy. Like, I love what he's done, and he's brought that edge back. But we're starting to see he's playing a lot of football, and he's getting a little bit older too. You don't really necessarily want to continue to weigh yourselves down with aging veterans like that. No offense, but I just think that they need to continue to get younger, and they're going to do that.
Yeah. If Mike Pennell were to come back, he might be the guy that sits on the practice squad all year until the playoffs.
I thought that should have been this year. Like, they should have done more, and that should have been this year.
And kudos to him for having more in the gas tank than I thought he did.
Absolutely.
That's a good thing in his book. Dub Freak, thanks, buddy. It's nice to see you. Thank you for the support as always. So looking forward, the Titans have secured the first pick. Do we keep the pick or use it to trade up? That's the big question. And I said it last week. Another game for Ohio State has not changed my mind. Michael Williams looks like the guy that I would like to see in this. Is he really going to be a top 10? He should be, because there's no quarterback in the first round for me. I'll tell you that right now. I have 0 quarterbacks as first round grades at this point. Now, I'm not super deep into them, but that's my initial evaluation. So will someone jump up there to do that, as they usually do? Will that push someone down? Could they get to 15 and maybe get a player like that? I honestly don't know yet. Do you have a feel for it?
I do believe that there will be two quarterbacks drafted in the first round. I believe that specifically with how this draft has now solidified itself. Mm-hmm. Titans have the first pick and the Browns have the second. And if you have heard anything coming out of Cleveland, they're done. They are over. They're done with Deshaun Watson. It's over. The problem presents itself in the monetary issue.
Yep.
It doesn't matter that he restructured. All of his guarantees are intact. So they don't have they can't go out and get a Sam Darnold who done a fantastic job and in that kind of system would play well. You can't do that. You can't rely on a retread. They need to draft a young quarterback. They have to. They don't really have a choice in my mind. So I think both the Titans and the Browns are going to do that. Now, the problem with the Chiefs is I don't think that Michael Williams is the answer because he is an edge. He's an edge.
You really think so? Okay.
Oh, with 36-inch arms, he's not playing inside. He's not doing that.
I'd put him next to Chris and I'd run him as a 3-tech. I would love it, but okay.
I know, but I think this is an edge situation. So I think that they're going to use their first-round pick to draft a defensive tackle, and they probably shouldn't be trading up in this draft. This is this is going to be a great day 2 draft. Like there's going to be a ton of valuable starters, and they got 3 picks on day 2. Use those picks. Maybe trade back and acquire another one. Maybe that's what you look to do.
I would love to see them trade the first and second picks to get 2 in the 40s. That would be my goal, is to get right in the middle of the second round, move up from 65, move down from 32. That's what I would like to see them do. But those deals are hard to find. You got to find a trade partner, and they're harder to find these days. Especially should they go and get a 3-peat. Ain't nobody going to help them out. So
not one person. Maybe you can get a trade down.
Maybe Brandon. Maybe Brandon. Brandon's always happy to help the Chiefs. So we'll just keep pushing it. Thank you, Mr. Bean. Sneed pick. Yes, absolutely, Dub Freak. Thank you. And I'm glad you mentioned that, as Dan did as well. That's significant at this point.
Yeah.
And it's going to be something I think does play an emphasis. Daryl, what did you think about DJ Humphries' play today? I thought it was up and down. There was one really, really, really bad loss on a speed rush from Benito. But it's funny because everybody's pointing at that, whereas the exact snap before on a nice play, he had a hell of a block. He got into his kick. He got to the point first and stymied Benito cold. So it was up and down for me. What did you see?
I didn't see anything that would leave me to believe that he's going to be the left tackle. I didn't see any of that myself. Now, we have to remember, and Seth Kaiser did a really good job of pointing out, this game was not game planned. This was not what we've seen from Joe Thuney in terms of lots of movement, lots of motions, lots of help. DJ didn't get a lot of that. But I also didn't, even when Joe didn't get a lot of help, I saw just better functional athleticism. Part of that is because he's not been coming back from an injury at this point in the season. There's some of that. So that's more of my hang up right now, is athletically, he's too inconsistent for me to say plug and play him at left tackle and everything will be okay. Mm-hmm. So there's that give and take of, well, Joe, 3 games in a row, and he's played pretty well. He got better every single time. And there's also, he's way better at guard. He helps your run game. And DJ, if he's ready in 2 weeks and this gives him some confidence, do you risk it? You can always go back to Joe. That is the very good thing about what they're in right now, is they can always go back to Joe.
Yeah, I agree. We'll take a look at it this week. I don't know what you're planning for your film room, but I'm going to try to take a look specifically at Sua at guard, see if that's a possibility for the future. That will also come into DJ, because that's the other thing, is DJ didn't play with Joe Thuney. That is a force multiplier that you rely on each other, and you actually outplay what you do on your own. I think that is a factor here as well. Last call for Super Chats, folks. We're going to take this last question and let you get on to Sunday Night Football. Ravens fan here. Thanks, Chavalis. We appreciate you. Which AFC team do you worry about the most in the playoffs? Why? Would the Chiefs have a free agent interest in Myles Garrett? That's a great question. Which AFC team do you worry about the most? I'm a little jaded myself because I sometimes don't recall the fact that if L'Jarius Sneed does not bat that ball out of Zay Flowers' hands, they lose to the Ravens last year. Mm-hmm. But I'm still, in my heart of hearts, more scared of Josh and the Bills.
I'm not.
Okay.
I am more personally, the Ravens, what they do with the run game with Lamar is different than what the Bills do. You can plan to stop James Cook. I like James Cook. He's done a really good job for himself. Mm-hmm. He's not an alien. Right. Derrick Henry's a certified alien. Okay. He just is. Now, I will say the Bills' offensive line is a tier above the Ravens' offensive line. It is. And they overcome that because Derrick Henry is Derrick Henry, and because the threat of Lamar in that read option. Josh is the scrambler. That is Josh. He's not like a focused 16 sometimes attempts in the run game read option. That's really not the strong suit. The Bills want to run the ball downhill at you with James Cook, and then in some of those game situations, they're like, "Hey, Josh, go ahead, go get us a bucket." Lamar is, we don't know. He could get the ball now. He could get the ball on second down. He could run the ball on third down. Any of these things are possible, and then you have Derrick Henry to worry about too. The trade-off is none of the receivers there scare me. Not even Zay Flowers. Like he got loose a couple of times against the Chiefs last year, but they did have that game-saving play. And this year, I mean, he's the only thing. Like he's the only player. Rashad Bateman has looked better, and I'm very happy to see that. I'm very happy because I was a big Rashad Bateman guy coming out. So I'm happy to see that. If Jalen Watson is healthy, I'm just going to say, hey, go take care of Rashad Bateman because I think he can handle that.
I agree.
I think that Trent McDuffie's done a better job this year, and he can handle that too. So it's a trade-off, but the combination of Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, it gives me a little bit more than Josh Allen by himself, which is hard to say, to be honest with you. It's tough. It's a tough situation.
Okay, fair enough. I will put it this way, though. I want nothing more. I don't care who it is, as long as those two have to play each other in order to play the Chiefs. That's all that matters to me.
Exactly. And if everything goes the way it should, they will.
Yeah. Let's hope that it keeps that. Tavalis, as far as it goes with Myles Garrett, I have never been a huge Myles Garrett guy, only because I don't feel the dynamicism, that the ability to take over a game is really there as much as people like to think it is, because of the division he plays in. But there's no arguing with how good that he is. He is an elite pass rusher. He is a power player that can set the edge and do everything that you want. It's just that he's a guy that will be coming off. Now he's got 100 sacks. There is no way to get a cheap deal on a guy like Myles Garrett. There's nothing. I don't even know if he's at a point where they could release him. And if you're talking about a trade, then the Chiefs are all the way out. And there's no way in hell they give up enough to do that. It would only come if they get to the point where they're in full meltdown, going to draft a quarterback, and they're cutting salary. That's the only way you're going to get Myles Garrett out of there as a free agent for the Chiefs.
I'm with you. I agree.
Okay. Let's see. Mr. Pena, Amari Hampton in the second round for the Chiefs. I feel it could be a good blend of Kareem and Pop. What positions you tackle in the draft? What other positions in the draft? I have not watched Hampton. I don't watch running backs till the week before the draft. So Dan's your man.
Amari Hampton, like I said, I like him better than Genty in terms of what I like stylistically for my running backs. And I think that he's a beautiful fit in Kansas City, and they should not draft him in the second round. If he's there in the third round with that number 66 pick, you press the button. Sure, all about it. But he's a top 50 player in this class. Caleb Johnson is another one, probably a top 50 player for me. It's a very running back heavy draft. If you can find a player like who is currently blowing it back up, Travion Henderson out of Ohio State in the third round, you press send.
Hell yes. Hell yes. Him, and I think it's going to be a 4-5-4 for my guy Scadaboo. So that puts him at the end of the fourth, maybe even in the fifth. I'll take him. What did you make of his last outing? And what's the whole, I'm going to wear McCaffrey's jersey? Excuse me, folks. Apologies for that.
So Cam Scadaboo, I think, is going to be a 4.6. Personally, I think he's going to hit that number unless he loses even more weight. But we forget he was playing at 230 2 years ago, and he lost about 15 pounds, came down to 215, and I still think he's about 4.6. So that shows you, I think, what he brings. I'm looking for a different running back stylistically, but that guy is a football player who I want on any team that I have. If it were like luxury pick, I draft him and then a fast guy like Devin Neal and just say, we're just going to work it this way. You're going to be the David Montgomery to my Jahmyr Gibbs, and we're going to figure it out, because that is a damn football player that I the way he plays is how football players should play. I love it.
Okay. Well, let's hope that it's a 4-5. sub something. Damn it. Apologies for the language, folks. I will fix that later. And our last one for tonight, Alex, Pro Bowl snub for Mahomes. I smell petty Pat. I completely agree with you. Nothing could have been better than for the league to say, we don't think you're that good no more, Patrick Mahomes. Show us.
That's all it is. Like, there's going to be every single analyst out there, from what I've seen, is saying, the Chiefs didn't want to play the Bengals. Okay. You guys, they want to see the best version of the Chiefs. No one has seen that this season.
Nope.
But you want to know when you're going to see it? When it matters most. Patrick Mahomes this season on third downs in key situations. First down, got it. Need a touchdown? I got you. Every time he raised his game. Every time. And the postseason is where it matters most, because it's not just every third down, it's every drive.
Yeah.
And we saw last year should give every Chiefs fan everything you've ever wanted in terms of that team should not have won a Super Bowl. And they did anyway. It didn't matter how bad they were. It didn't matter the injuries they sustained. It didn't matter that they didn't have a receiver for 95% of the season that could do anything. It didn't matter they lost to the Raiders on Christmas Day in a game where they threw a pick six where Patrick didn't play well. None of that mattered. They don't have any of that really holding them back this year. Yeah, Rashid got hurt. Their wide receiver crew is better this year than it's been. I'm going to say it now. I'm going to say it because even without Rashid Rice, these 1, 2, 3 receivers are a better 1, 2, 3 receiver group than Patrick Mahomes has ever had in his career. It's been Tyreek Hill and then a bunch of guys. It's been collection in 2022 after Tyreek Hill, and now they have guys.
I'm here for guys. I hope you're absolutely right. And if they can go do what they're capable of doing, it's over. I mean, it's over. It's a third ring. It's history. It's becoming the best team to ever play the game. That's how this will be referred to. Not the dynasty, not anything else. The best team to ever play the game will be this group of what it amounts to on 69 players on the practice squad total, right? In each of the 3 seasons, it's still only around 100 guys. And that will be that group. The Dolphins will be pissed about that. So, hey, it's going to be what it is. I'm going to leave it there before I say something else that's stupid. So thank you, everyone, for being with us. I hope you enjoyed the regular season because that stuff is over now. We are going to have stuff for you all week as we get prepared for not only what the Chiefs are going to do next, who they're going to play next, but whatever else happens in the league. Go to NFL 33 and get signed up because it's going to be, behind the subscription wall. But I'm going to tell you what I actually think about a lot of these moves that are coming on Black Monday, including the one that started today, because I'm actually a little bit annoyed. So we're going to have more for you. Don't forget about us. Gary's back, the whole 9 yards. It's now actually football season, folks. So let's get after it. Dan, thank you for Sunday night. Say hello to the fam. And are you as excited as I am?
I'm glad we get to see real football we played, guys. I'm so excited. I hope you guys enjoyed. I know it was a bad game, but just remember the grand scheme. 2 weeks from now, the Chiefs will be playing, or we'll see you Saturday or Sunday. We'll find out. But regardless, they'll be playing real football, and this is what they care about. Yep. They're going to bring their A game. I can't wait.
I am here for it. Have a great night. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the Q&A Live at 7 Central. Bring your questions. We'll see you then.